and welcome to Amethyst Style Crafting. My name is Jane Allmark and I'm a UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. And today we are going to look at a lovely host set called New Wonders. I absolutely love these little sort of fairy images, and you've got a little sort of fairy holding a pen, which is perfect for any sort of sentiment you want to put underneath. You've got a fairy turning the page back with the leaves, and you've got a little fairy peeking out. There's some lovely sentiments in there. You've got happy birthday, celebrate, congratulations, thank you, just popping in to say hi. And you've got each new page reveals a new wonder to be experienced, which I thought really worked for something that we're going to do today. So we are going to be using as well some of the most beautiful patterned paper, designer series paper, and it's called Perennial Essence designer series paper. It is absolutely beautiful. It's got, if you're into pinks and purples and flowers and just sort of washy type drawings, the sort of Monet style, it is just absolutely gorgeous. So that's the paper we're using today. And I have cut a piece which is 8 1/4 inches, so the size of, and this is what I say with international or UK, if you cut your paper down so that it is, this one, as I say, is 8 1/4, which is the width of an A4 sheet in the UK, but whatever your width is, by 6 inches. And then you're going to score and just fold it in half. Then, because this designer series paper isn't the thickest, it's really lovely, but it won't stand up for what we're going to do, I have taken a piece of heavy Whisper White, done exactly the same thing. So this is when I say if you take your standard width of your cardstock and then cut it in half, you're going to have this again. It is going to be 8 and a, let me turn it onto this side and then I can show you on the measurements. It is going to be 8 1/4 by 6 inches. So you want it 6 inches down this side, 8 1/4, so when you fold it in half, and then that is going to go on the inside, which will give the cover just a little bit more stability, which is what we want. Then you need to get a whole load of copy paper. So this is just standard photocopy paper, because these are going to go the pieces inside, and this is cut 1/4 inch smaller. It's still 6 inches on the long side, so for the actual notebook side, but I've trimmed it down by 1/4 inch, so it is 4 inches across. So when you cut it, it's 8 inches scored at 4, because then that fits inside. We're making a little notebook, so that fits inside better. So I've taken another, I normally do about 10 sheets, but the great thing about this particular one is that you can add pages in as often as you want. So it's quite difficult to see on the lights on there. So literally try and get it as level as you can across, and with copy paper it's fairly easy to literally just fold it in half. And you can use your bone folder if you want to. I'm just using my fingers, and then that piece is going to go inside like that. Okay, so you've got yourself a little notebook. Okay, so, and I probably would, I'm not going to do it now, I probably would trim some of these off just a little bit more, but I'm not going to do that with that. So this is the start of a very simple, very easy notebook. Sometimes we want to make gifts that only take a few minutes. This literally only takes a few minutes. I showed you one the other day where we stitched it, and if you're doing it for somebody special, I would always stitch. However, for a really easy way, you can use hair ties. Now, these are fairly straightforward, cheap ones that you can get, and these are just in a dark brown. You can choose coloured ones if you want to, but you need to make sure that when you stretch them out that they will go across and fit your 6 inches, which, as I say, this does. You want it fairly tight so that then your pages don't fall out. Now, to put this on, I have found a little tip which works for me. If you take a piece of, just a scrap of cardstock and sort of score it in half, this is just shy of the 4 inches. And what I'm going to do is, because when you stretch the hair bobble across, or the hair tie across, what can happen is that it can actually damage the pages as you go across. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting this little piece along the top. And again, it's done in heavy cardstock. So, and I've just, as I say, scored it in half, and you can measure it exactly if you want, but you really only want it where the bobble is, or the hair tie is actually going to go straight across on here and is likely to damage the paper before it gets down to the bottom. Once it gets down to the bottom, it's all right. So what I tend to do is put it across, stretch it across where I want to go, then it's going to go down onto this piece, so it's not going to damage it, and then you can ease it down, because once it actually gets down to the bottom on here, you are going to be fine, because it goes right onto that seam and that's where it joins on. So I'm just moving it down. Then you can take off your protectors. And as I say, keep them. If you're doing a whole pile of them, great little gifts for craft fairs, because as I say, people can add them in again. You can get all sorts of different coloured ties, but just sort of ease that through onto the corner, and you can see that it doesn't damage it once it's on. You can, as I say, slightly damage it if you get it on this part. So that's why I've just come up with the sort of tie bit. And then you have your little notebook. Fastening it, you can fasten it in a lot of ways. I'm still using the lovely gold library clips that we had. They're retired now, but we have got some black and some white ones. I haven't got them yet because they've only just come out, but a little clip like that will go on perfectly. So you can leave them exactly like that, but I wanted to use the new wonders. So I have stamped out the image, which is the this one with the pen and the lovely sentiment, each new page reveals a new wonder to be experienced, which I thought would work perfectly on a notebook. And then we are going to use some colours that I think will work perfectly and are part of the coordinating colours. So we've got some old olive, we've got some blackberry bliss, and I've used Pacific Point because I haven't got blueberry bushel, but any sort of colours that you know that'll sort of tone in. And we are going to do this in because it's fairly quick and easy to do. So as I say, this is a lovely project for doing you know, something fairly quickly. So we're going to use the, let me just get some water in on my brush. There we go. And then just dry it out. I always do it with my fingers, as you know. I'm a crafter that uses things with my fingers. Now I'm going to try and get this fairly pale because I don't want it to be too bright on here. So let's do her, we're going to do the little bottom bit of her dress in here, which has got lovely sort of like little petals on, which are rather sweet. So I'm going to take that in like that. Reminds me of the little flower fairies. I love the flower fairies. I don't know whether you know the books of the flower fairies. They all have little sort of petal dresses and things like that on, which are rather nice. Okay, so that's the purple on there. Now, am I going to just pale it in and do? Yes, I might do. So if you just keep going on your scratch paper so you get it paler, you can then have, just for the top of the dress, just take it in so you have the two tones, because I don't want it too bright. Using colours that are, this is a particularly, the purples tend to be very strong colours, so you only need to use such a tiny little bit of ink and then just bring it through. But I really like the aqua painters. We have our blender pens, but for me nothing works better than the aqua painter. It's absolutely beautiful. It never saturates the paper, as long as you don't put too much in. So we've now got those lovely sort of purpley tones on there. Now her pen, I think the pen is going to go in the blue. So let's have the Pacific Point in that, because that's quite a nice sort of refreshing blue. I should have got some kitchen roll actually, shouldn't I? I haven't got any kitchen roll at the moment, so I'm just going to wipe it off on here so you get it so that it runs clear, so you can actually see it. And then I'm going to take up some of this blue, and again always check it first so you know you haven't got it too light or too pale. And we're just going to do the bottom of this down around her little fingers. As you know, I do this sort of little dotty thing when I'm coming close to something small, so then I don't have the chance of it bleeding through. And it's the same with blender pens as it is with water. If you just do it, as I say, really gently up to the top, then you know that you're not going to get it over the edge and spoil it. Okay, so that's the pen. Now, what am I going to do for her hair? I think she's going to be a sort of woodland fairy. So woodland fairies would be in darker colours. So let me just grab a little bit of crumb cake. I think will work quite nicely. Don't want a huge amount, so I'm just going to take out a tiny little bit on here in the crumb cake, and then again just put it on. Yes, that's about right. I don't want too much on there, so let's just bring that through. Just go through over on the edges. You can always tell I go quiet when I'm colouring. I do love colouring, particularly you know, as a de-stress at the end of the day, to just spend a little while just colouring through. And again, very simple and very easy to do. Okay, so we now need some skin tones. So I'm going to use, I've got some powder pink here, which is really quite pale. So let me make sure that I've taken all the colour off of there, which I have. So just a tiny little bit of powder pink now. And again, just make sure that it's not too bright. And then we can just go round on her little face. And again, the aqua painter is very good because you can tone it down or brighten it up just by adding a little bit of water. So her little feet down there, and her little hands. There we go. So that's her little hands done on there. Now we've got some little tiny bits on here to do. So I am going to go through to my blends for this bit. She's going to be a little blue. She's going to have blue or greeny blue eyes. So I'm taking the light pool party this time, and I'm literally just going to, just where the black part is on the eye, I'm just going to do a couple of little blobs through, because then that gives her blue eyes, which is rather nice. And then the tip of the pen, have I got I think I've got a pale grey, haven't I? So that'll mimic silver. Yes, light smoky slate. So we're just going to literally on the pen, and again just do some little dots so it doesn't come up too bright and it's not going to go where you don't want it to go. And as I say, I could have done this with the inks, but I thought, well, I'm going to do a little bit of both, because quite often that's what we do. We mix and match. We use all of our things. Now, I'm also going to, the little hearts, I'm choosing the light cherry cobbler, because I just wanted the hearts to, in fact, maybe I'm not, because that one's going to take the top off. There we go. Right. So the light cherry cobbler, and literally you put a, see if I can get this with the light, you put a dot. And a dot. And a couple of dots like that. Just on the centre of there, because then that brings that out a little bit. Now, what I am going to do now is to take our wink of Stella. Because for the wings, for me, fairy wings are always, you know, they have stories about gossamer wings. So fairy wings to me are always translucent. And the wink of Stella, now you know this is an empty one, which I fill up with the shimmer paint that we have. And we have champagne, and we also have frost white. Now this is the frost white, so a few drops of that in with, you can do it with alcohol if you want to, as you know I do it just straight with tap water, and then do exactly the same just in the center. And because we've used the blender pens and we're using this, which is water based, it won't bleed and blend together, so that works quite well. So let's have a look and see how that's going to look on the center of here. I think that's going to look lovely as it is. Now, I could sponge in the edges. I don't think I am, because it's a notebook. I don't want it to be overly fancy. I think I'm going to keep it just like that. So let me take this off a second so I've got some space to work with. And as I say, I'm just going to put this straight on the centre like that, because as I say, I don't want it too fancy. It's going to be something that I'm going to be flipping in and out all the time. So I don't want, you know, lots of ribbon and lots of embellishments and stuff, because sometimes they do tend to sort of stick in the way. You can do them however you want. It's, as I always say to you guys, I just give you ideas. It's then up to you to turn around and go, oh, that's quite a good idea. I'm going to go off and I'm going to have a go and do lots of it. So that's just the idea. Now this glue is, it's a really muggy day today, and I need to take the Take Your Pick tool and literally just, sometimes when it's very humid, which it is, we're having a bit of a, which is quite unusual for this country. We've had several weeks of horrible rain, and now we're down to really muggy weather, and what happens is that things tend to get a little bit sticky. However, this one is nearly coming to an end, so I do need to get a new one, and if this is not playing ball, then I might, oh yes, here we go, just needed a little bit of a, in fact it's coming out great guns now. Okay, so you need to make sure that it's fairly well glued, because it's going on the front of a notebook, so it's going to be opened and closed quite a bit. Whoops, stand that up. So let's make sure I've got it the right way round, and then literally it's just a matter of positioning it where you want it in the center, like that. Okay, and then as I say, with wet glue it takes just a few seconds to go off, so just sort of hold it in place until that's gone on there. But I really like I like the little fairy. And then what you can do is you can add different embellishments and things like that on there if you want. I've been playing around with a few ideas with things, and I just did a couple of, let's take one of those off. I've had some little wooden beads and things, so you know, you could put a little charm on, This is just done on a paper clip. Let me just put this down like that. So, you know, you could have a little charm or something on there. You can do whatever you want with it once you sort of got the basics down. But I just wanted to come on and show you how easy it is to do a little notebook like this. You can put as many pages as you want in there. Just stiffen it if you're using designer series paper, which isn't quite as thick as some of them. And then, as I say, once you've finished with the pages, you can put some more in, and it's just tied with a simple tie. So thank you so much for watching me. Hope you'll have a go at making some of those, and look forward to seeing you again. Bye bye.